So you are that woman that you finally understand that your emotional eating is not about willpower. It's not about the food. And you're still asking yourself, but what about the weight loss? What's the next step? Why am I not making this happen? And why do I keep quitting in the second week of anything that I try to do? If this is you, you are in the right place. We are going to fill in the missing pieces. And welcome back to my wonderful guest, emotional eating coach and weight loss coach, Holly Bertone.
Oh, Kim, thank you so much, not just for having me on the show, but having me back on the show. And before we even jump in, I just want to say to all of the listeners out there to make sure that you leave a 5-star rating and review. Just it's going to help get the word out and just help your show reach more people. And I know you and I both have such a huge passion for this topic, and yeah, it's really going to help. So.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that support. And you are on episode 116. So everyone can go back and listen to that. And I'll put it in the show notes also. But I really think that we will cover some of it again just to make sure the new listeners know where we're coming from. I also wanted to ask you, what do you hope that the listeners, that one woman who's listening and needs it today, what do you hope she's going to walk away feeling today?
I really hope that if you're listening and you've tried everything, you've given up and given up and given up, that when you fall down 10 times, this is your 11th time to get back up. That it is never too late. The circumstances are never too hard. I know between my own personal journey and the women who I have worked with, it is never too late. So just keep getting up.
That's so encouraging. What a great way to start this episode. So let's go back in time, though, because I really relate to your background story, not exactly your job, but what you were going through and how you used your profession at that time to move forward. So give us the background story on Holly.
Right. So I was at one point in time, I was the chief of staff for the FBI's counterintelligence program management office. And what me and my team were in charge of is we looked at the patterns of spies and espionage. We sliced and diced the data. And this was still when databases in the government were dinosaurs. So it was very manual. We didn't have huge databases. We didn't have ChatGPT. We didn't have any of that. This was years ago. And what we did was we looked at patterns, and I really felt like that was my true calling. I feel like I have been a pattern nerd my entire life from the time I was 10 years old, and when I was doing 1,000-piece puzzles on the dining room table. I told my parents it was too easy. So I took 3 boxes of puzzles, so 3 different 1,000-piece puzzles, dumped them out on the table, mixed them up, and put them back together. I've been so obsessed with patterns my entire life. That job at the FBI it was a dream come true. It really was. And being able to and again, not even with computers, but just being able to use my own brain to analyze the patterns of spies and espionage, and being able to provide that data to our management so that they could make informed decisions. And I thought I was just the coolest kid on the block because it was a dream come true. It was a dream job. And I am going to give you about 15 years, 10, 15 years in 60 seconds. I was diagnosed with breast cancer, went through surgery, chemo, radiation, subsequently diagnosed with Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune disease, and resigned from my job at the FBI. I struggled with my health. And when I turned 49, I packed on the pounds. Like they just came on overnight. And I had already resigned. I was already a part-time health coach at that point, and everything that I had learned about diets and nutrition and losing weight, nothing had worked. And my biggest problem was that I had been an emotional eater my entire life. Literally ever since I could remember. I couldn't just eat comfort food. I inhaled the comfort food. And in my 30s, I would say my diet was probably 95% junk food and comfort food and processed food and fast food. So when I gained the weight, I was quote unquote eating clean and healthy Monday through Friday and then downing 3 pints of ice cream over the weekend. But the calorie math was not mathing. And I was like, I shouldn't be gaining this much weight because the calories just don't make sense. And I realized that number one, I needed to get my emotional eating under control, which I did. And we can talk about the emotional eating forensics framework. I actually, when 4 different health and nutrition certifications failed me, I went back to those pattern analysis skills at the FBI and decided to fight fire with fire. And I was like, well, let's see if I can do some pattern analysis and some brainwashing, and it worked. So we can get into the emotional eating forensics framework. Once I got the emotional eating under control, I was able to get the weight under control and have been working with clients ever since full time with their emotional eating, with their weight loss, and really looking at how the two just feed, and pun intended, feed off of each other.
Yes. Well, let's get into that because we have so much more. This is almost like a part two that we're layering on. And so, for the people who missed episode 116, let's go through quickly the emotional eating forensics because there's so much more now that we
Yeah.
both we're friends for a reason. First of all, I was a math teacher, so patterns are like 100% my deal. The 40s were not kind to me either with the whole body and understanding the whole weight issues. Very sorry that you had to go through breast cancer and that you have the Hashimoto's diagnosis. You are one of the most resilient people I know.
Oh,
So it's amazing that you've come through this because now you are helping people. And the emotional eating forensics is the original framework. So let's start there and share what that is.
yeah. So I want to start with, I think, what we get wrong, and then I'll jump into it. And we like to think that I'm emotionally eating or binge eating or overeating, whatever you want to label it. I don't have any willpower. I don't have any discipline. And I just need to go on a diet. I need to count calories. I need to cut back, like all of these things that we tell ourselves. And what I found, and if you can kind of think of this like a pyramid or like an iceberg, what you eat is at the top of the iceberg. And that is what everyone teaches in terms of weight loss. It's like calorie in, calorie out, go on the diet, eat the sad little salad in the tiny plastic box. Like, that's what the industry teaches. And then under that is that layer of, I just need more motivation or discipline, which you and I both know that doesn't work. Right. When you have that obsessive gravitational pull to eat food, there is nothing that is going to stop it. Nothing.
No. And
And
that's
and
why
I
when
know,
they say don't keep, just don't keep it in the house. I have driven to the gas station
oh
in my
yeah,
pajamas to get that. So I'm so glad you brought that up. The gravitational pull to that food has zero to do with your motivation.
yeah. And so if you kind of think of that as the line of demarcation, and I know Kim, you and I both work under like the big piece of the iceberg that's under the ocean. So let's start at the very bottom, because between my own journey, working with hundreds of clients and researching and analyzing 3,171 emotional eating profiles, what I found was that everything starts with our nervous system. And our body does not feel safe. When our body does not feel safe, when our brain does not feel safe, it reaches for safety. And over decades, we have trained ourselves that safety and comfort equal food. And that is the core. That is the very beginning. We are looking at nervous system regulation. One layer up from that is identity. This is who we are, what we believe about ourselves to be true. And I'll give you 2 examples, which I know is going to resonate with everyone. Hopefully no one's listening is a smoker, but you probably know a smoker. And you're like, okay, what does a smoker do every day at 10 o'clock in the morning? They're outside smoking a cigarette. Right. Everyone here you might be a marathon runner, or you probably know a marathon runner. What do marathon runners do every single day? They lace up their shoes and they run. Like, it is so ingrained in a smoker's identity that they smoke. It is so ingrained in a marathon's identity that they run. Like, there's no other option on the table. And that is the same that we view ourselves when it comes to emotional eating or when it comes to I can't lose the weight, is that we have that identity of, "Oh, I just need to diet," or, "Oh, I just need better willpower," or something's wrong with me, or, and then when our identity doesn't match up with the world that we want it to be, it creates the what's called cognitive dissonance, and our brain goes into justification. So our brain now starts to justify why we do the things that we do. The next layer up is predictive patterns. And this is really where the rubber meets the road. And the predictive patterns is my area of specialty because the predictive pattern connects that safety, that identity, that core of who we are. The safety and the identity, this is you've got your system one brain, which is your emotional part of your brain. It's fast, it's emotional, it's automatic. It's like when you're driving down the street and you see a soccer ball roll out in front of the street, the first thing you're going to do is slam on the brakes. You're not going to look for the kid, you're going to slam on the brakes. So that is our system one brain. So that nervous system and the identity, that's our system one brain. The behaviors and habits and what we eat, that is our system two brain. That is more slow and logical and thoughtful, but system one drives system two. And that connecting point in between is those predictive patterns, the predictive patterns that our brain does. So, and I actually taught this to, believe it or not, I taught this to a 3-year-old. So I am going to share with you how I taught this to a 3-year-old because I think it's kind of cool. So for the audio, you're not going to see this, but anyone on visual, I've got think of a little red Chevy truck matchbox. So if you're just listening, you can think of a little red Chevy truck matchbox car. And our brain has roads. They're called neurons. So when we look at not feeling safe, when we look at, we're being stressed, it's a chaotic day. When we look at this is just what I do, we get that trigger, whether that's someone said something to us, we're running late, we lost our keys, we got in a fight with our spouse, a dog pooped on the carpet. So we have that trigger moment. And then our little red truck goes down the road of the trigger moment, the fork in the road, the little red truck goes down to, okay, I'm just going to eat. And when these predictive patterns come in at that point, what we can do is we can change the road. So instead of the little red truck turning right and going down this path of I'm going to eat, we can change this. We can change those neurons in our brain. We can change that road. So now this little red truck goes to the left and the little red truck is going down a different path where we are not eating. And once we train that truck to go down a different path, that next step is the behaviors, the habits, the actions. So instead of reaching for the comfort food, we're doing something else. Maybe we're reaching for something healthier. Maybe we're drinking a glass of water. Maybe we're going for a walk. Maybe, as so many of my clients have said, like, I just don't have those cravings anymore. So we even just can eliminate that altogether. And that's how the emotional eating forensics framework works, because each layer informs the next layer, but your brain's predictive patterns, it's like, remember the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding and the head and the neck? Those predictive patterns are the neck. They're driving where that head is going to look. They're driving where that truck is going to drive. So once we figure out, this is where the brainwashing comes in. Once we can figure out how to brainwash ourselves, we can start turning that truck around and going down a different road and making different choices, behaviors, and food. What's important here is automatically, without the willpower, without like the, talking to yourself and all of the mental gymnastics that you have to go through.
And I love that too, because the thought can be so strong, but if you don't have the repetitive action that goes with it, we aren't rewiring. And I love how you're talking about rewiring, like the little red truck down one path or it's going down another. And I think that's a really good analogy for the neurological things that are going on in our brains. And the fact that we can rewire it is amazing. We really don't feel like that sometimes. We feel like we're always going to be trapped in food. And that reminds me of the whole diet culture part of this too. So we are taught a lot of really crazy things in diet culture. And I'd love for you to share a couple things that you really wish that women were not taught when it comes to managing their bodies. Because really, number one, weight loss is all everybody's looking for.
Yeah. Before I jump into that, I you said the word that I did not say, and I'm glad you said it, and that's repetition. And this process is just like potty training a puppy. You don't brush her teeth once and say, "Oh, no cavities, nailed it." You don't do one push up and be like, "Oh, turned arms, nailed it," right? You don't take your dog out once, your puppy out once and say, "Oh, it's potty trained, nailed it," right? It's that repetition that you need every single day until you can't stand it. And then you got to do it some more because that repetition is what is going to rewire your brain. So I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you. Oh my goodness. Where do I like to call it the diet cult. I don't call it diet culture. I call it the diet cult because that's really what it is. Where do we even start? First, I mentioned earlier the sad little salads in tiny little boxes. We have been taught that we're supposed to starve ourselves somehow. I can't tell you how many women I work with who are overweight and they're undernourished. They're not actually eating enough food. And protein, especially animal protein and fat, have been demonized for so many years. And despite the fact that any of that has been debunked for years, this is still what, mainstream influencers and mainstream even doctors will say, "Oh, you can't eat a lot of meat or fat's going to make you fat." Like it is still the lexicon, even though it has been proven not true for years. And what I found is that the more protein and fat and healthy fats, I should say, that women eat, they're like, this is actually so you've got the mental component of the emotional eating, like that gravitational pull, but then there's also that hunger component. And guess what? When you're eating protein and fat, your belly feels fuller. You're more satiated. You don't have I like to call it the meno belly, right? Like the meno baby that we get. And you're like it really helps with those cravings. So this whole concept of what we're supposed to starve ourselves, and then this whole new trend of I think they call it like skinny talk or something, that skinny is in now, and I like to say strong is in. Skinny's great for looking good in a bikini, but strong is what is going to get us, especially once we get to a certain age. Strong is what is going to keep us healthy as we age into our 70s and 80s and 90s. Strong, and when I say strong, I mean strength training and really like building muscle. That is what is going to keep us independent as we age, because it's going to help with with our bones and with our muscles. And so many women, I don't know the statistics, but how many women fall, break their hip, and then like they're in a nursing home at that point on. So when you have that strength and even agility, being able to stretch your body, being able to be nimble. I mean, even just thinking about having a dog or a cat in your kitchen and you take one step back, you and I were like, whatever. We like bobble a second. We're like, we're good. An older person, they don't have that balance. They're going to fall. That's how falls happen. That's how broken bones happen. So building that muscle and also that agility and that balance is also going to be key. And the other thing, I mean, I could go on for days. The other thing that I want to highlight are all of the chemicals in the foods. And I mean, I'm just going to say it. I am extreme because I drive to a farm. I have 3 different farms that I source my 90% of my food from. And I go to the grocery store like once every 2 months to get toilet paper. So I'm fully admitting I'm the odd one when I say this, but I don't know what is going on with our food system with just even foods that we used to enjoy, like Reese's cups, right? Like they changed the ingredients, the chemicals, like everything that they're putting in foods these days. It's more addictive. It's chemicals. I was just talking to a client earlier in the week, and she was saying she's like, I had a tiny bit of a setback, and she goes, I took a couple bites, and she's like, it was like fireworks going off. She goes, I have been so good so long. And she goes, all it took was a couple bites and it was like fireworks. And she's like, I was able to stop myself because she goes, I did not realize what they put in food that makes it so addictive, that makes our like we can't stop. So that's the other piece of this too, is that we think, oh, it's just willpower. It's also the chemicals and these addictive agents that they're putting in our food.
I love that you are highlighting both. We have the emotional eating and actually three things. The diet culture. Our brain is convinced that we have to do things the old school way, cutting calories and being hungry. And then on top of that, we have the chemical reaction. There's the scientists that are working in the lab to make sure that we are eating more. Ironically, you mentioned Reese's peanut butter cups because that is my one thing that I fall into. And I feel the same way when I have had them recently. I'm actually doing a podcast episode on having one recently that I've not had for a long time because I'm rewired. But somebody gave it to me and they thought they were being really nice. And I had it and I tasted it and it was so much sweeter than I ever remember because I also make them on my own. I make my own. And so I make them the way I want to make them so that they're not so sweet. But you brought up a couple things that I want to highlight too that are so, so valuable. When you talk about the protein and the fat and the actual feeding our bodies as women, again, that was a societal thing. We even had to go out and we can talk about dating too, because I know you're in the midst of dating. I used to go out on a date when I was younger and I would get the salads. I wanted the pasta. And that's not something I would eat now because of what I know more about my blood sugar. But
Mhm.
I would want the pasta, but I'd eat the salad because that was, quote, ladylike. And we've been conditioned to think it's not okay to be full, to eat a good amount of food. And I think that creates that unsafe feeling also in our bodies. We're always on edge. And I'd love for you to talk about the identity of that too. In diet culture, we are in these different identities. You've even talked about your identity when you didn't feel good about your body and your identity when you did feel good and how that also helped you with your choices. So can you go down that road a little bit? Because I think identity is so important and you have really said some really amazing, powerful things about it.
Yeah, we can jump into identity. We can even jump into dating and what that what that looks like because I have been an open book at dating at 54, which is crazy. I never expected to be here. But I think back to my FBI days. And that was my entire identity. Like I had a thing up on the wall that just it says FBI girl. Like it was just that was my entire world. And I honestly believe that my downhill spiral started when I resigned in 2017. And, resigned partly for health, for the health reasons that I was going through. But then it was also my stepson was in middle school and it was just a really good time for me to be a stay-at-home stepmom for him. And I got to, start coaching part-time. So, it was one of those where the circumstances all just worked out, but I didn't know it at the time. Looking back, I really feel like that was the start of the spiral because I lost 13 years of my identity of being an FBI girl. I mean, I wasn't an agent, but I worked there for 13 years and that was everything to me. And I didn't know who I was outside of that. I'm trying to heal my body. I'm being a stepmom and, he was in middle school at that point. I'd been raising him since he was 5, so that identity was pretty solid. Starting to coach a little bit, but I didn't know who I was. And I truly believe that that is the start of the spiral that even influenced a lot of the weight gain and even the eating and just not taking care of myself and being in that time of my life where, my self-esteem was wrecked and I wasn't taking good care of myself and I was putting on the best mask that I could because it's survival. It's what we do. I also feel like, and the divorce was 50-50. I will not tell you any percentage other than that, but I fully own that 50% because of where I was at and who I was and that identity that I had. And as I was trying to figure out what those next steps look like and who I was and, how to lose the weight and how to just get myself back, there's this void. I'm going to take a side tangent here. I explain this with all of my clients is that there is going to be a long period of time where when you are making these changes, you are in what is called the liminal space. So it's like you've got one foot on the rock that is the old you And you're going down this journey of getting healthier and the emotional eating and losing weight and all the things, but your identity isn't quite on that new rock yet. So remember the old cartoons and like the cartoon character had like the big split or whatever, you know? And that's exactly what this is. You've got one foot on one rock, one foot on the other rock, you're split and you're like in this like free fall. You're not attached to either identity. And there's this like liminal space where you're like, I don't know who I am or where, like how I'm doing this. And when we talk about quitting, that is the easiest spot to quit when you're like, I'm not the old me anymore, but I'm not seeing the progress. It's not really working. I'm not seeing the results. What am I supposed to do with this? So that was also a really hard time for me to try to find, to try to find what that identity looked like. And it was at the time of the divorce and after the divorce where I really started to lean into, and that was when I also started to lose the weight, really started to lean into what does this like what who am I and what does this next chapter look like for me? And also changing my relationship with food from that place of identity that I am not the girl who just reaches for food, because I'm having a bad day or a bad moment or, just because it's there. I'm not the girl who, can just start one bite of a pint of ice cream and just finish it. Like I can put it back in the freezer. And I ended up going 2 years without any kind of sugar, any kind of sweets, any kind of trigger foods because I needed to have that space and that time to kind of clear up. And it wasn't until I would say just this past year that I actually started to reintroduce because I wasn't sure what that was going to look like. I was too scared of what that would look like. And I actually now enjoy a treat is an actual treat. Like old Holly would have been every single day. It's a hard day. I deserve the treat. I deserve the reward. And I'm going to eat everything in sight because of it. But I think of it like our grandparents, right? Like a treat was an actual treat. It was once a month they would go out to the local ice cream shop and they'd make ice cream from the local cows and they'd get a little scoop and that was a treat. And that's how I view it now. And it's so different and it's so freeing, but I had to become her first before I could get there. And now we talked about the dating, which has been kind of comical because I took a few years off after the divorce and did not date. I really just wanted to focus on me. So just this past year I started dating and it's funny because I was always I guess you say the pick me girl. I used to always be her. I used to always be the pick me girl. And it's that shift in that identity that I am no longer the pick me girl. Like I am the prize. And I've done so much work on myself to, and not in like a braggadocious way, but just like I know my worth and I know my value and I know what I bring to the table. So dating has been kind of fun because it's, number one, from an eating perspective, like the very first picture on my profile is me. I'm like holding up this huge piece of steak that I got from the farm.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious. And I was like, okay, any man who likes a steak, like that's just catnip.
Yeah.
But I totally got over that, because I was like, "Oh, I have to eat like a bird if I go on a date and eat a dainty little salad and not eat a lot." And I was like, "No, like, I'm going back to the gym and I'm building muscle and, I'm like eating real food." And I was like, they're either going to like that or they're not. And if they don't like that, they're not my guy.
This is so good. A couple things I want to stop on because you're just throwing out gold today, Holly. You really are. One of the things is the identity. And I feel so strongly about this too. And I remember, and it's so similar to you going from the FBI to being a stay-at-home mom. I was a marathon runner. So it's funny you mentioned the marathon running before. And that was such my identity. I had the magnets on my car. I had the whole thing, 26.2. And then I was all about it, the hats, the whole thing. And then I was also a high school math teacher. Everybody knows what a high school math teacher is. When I went into health coaching, I struggled. And ironically, I'm going into health coaching with an emotional eating issue. And I really did struggle with that identity, trying to explain what I did. People would misinterpret what it was all the way around, and that's fine. And so I love that you brought that up. I think our identity is really important, but you also said we've got one foot in the old identity and one foot in the new identity. And we're kind of back and forth because we haven't had that repetition, that subconscious part of it just yet. And so your pieces that you're putting together for us are really, really good because I think that there's that time in between that we're going to talk about that too with the quitting. But the dating part, I went through it in my 40s. So I am so with you. The dating part is so funny. And I was the pick me girl also. I felt, I'm just going to be really honest. Everybody knows so much about me already on here. I definitely was desperate to find love again. I just wanted to be loved. And I've grown up the people pleaser wanting to be loved. So when I finally got myself in that space where I had the habits that I wanted, then I was the same. I was picking. But I want to ask you this about dating because there's a lot of women who have gone through divorce. And I also blended a family, my second marriage. So being a stepmom is also no joke, by the way. So
Yeah.
I feel you on that. But when I was dating, I finally realized after dating some people who didn't align health wise with me, that became a part of what I was looking for. I want to know when you're looking for someone and you're realizing they're not on the same page health wise, what do you do with that? How do you feel? What do you want?
Yeah. So, and okay, this is what happens when you have I have an adult stepson, and we were actually talking about dating. I mean, not anything inappropriate, but just like the funny stuff. Like I showed him my profile picture with, me holding this huge piece of steak and he was laughing. But what I found is that when I have those early conversations, of this is what I'm looking for. These are my standards. I have, old fashioned dating values. I'll just leave it at that. And some guys are in alignment with that. Some guys just want other things. And I put that out there. And and you can usually tell by the pictures. And I've had a few like in real life dating, but most of it's been online and, dating from there. But you can usually tell by the pictures too if they're, pretty, and I don't like he doesn't need to have the body of an Adonis. Like I just want to know that we're aligned with, you're eating healthy, you're going to the gym, like, 4 meals out of the week is not going to be fast food. Like I just need to make sure that we're, in that alignment. So I have those conversations early and it's almost a joke because, I share this and it's basically like, okay, they're either going to stay or they're going to run. And I'm completely okay with that because if they run, they're not my person. And I'm at a place now, and I think, you know, being alone and purposely not dating for several years has really helped me to be in that place because I'm like, I know I'm a really good wife. I was married for 14 years and my ex was a Green Beret. Like that's not, ex is a Green Beret and a stepmom. Like that was not talk about roles and identity. That was not easy. Right. So I know I'm a really good wife. I know I'm really good at being by myself. So from a dating perspective, if it's not aligned, I'm okay with just like, hey, I wish you all the best. And that right there is a huge amount of growth from old Holly because old Holly would have bent over backwards to change for him. And now it's like, no, these are my standards and I'm okay to wait.
That is so powerful for every listener who's gone through this or you're going through it now. Changing for another person, and some of us have already done that in our first marriages, and being alone. Yeah, that's the other part of it is we are a chameleon when we
Yeah.
want to be loved, and being alone is also really important. And I am so happy to hear that. And having those standards too is really important and being okay with you. We build our tribe by the magnetism of who we truly are. And if they're not into it, that's okay. We can let that go. I am curious too, when you are at home alone, because I've seen your posts and I just crack up. I have
I
a
do. I
feeling
like to have fun. Like,
I
and
know, I love it.
And really quick, emotional eating is so heavy. It is so,
Yes,
like, heavy. Just the other day on our in my group call, they're like, "Holly, I am so glad that we laugh because it is so heavy." And I'm like,
yes.
"I can't be heavy all of the time. We have to laugh. We have to have fun with this, and we have to make, not light of it, but we have to come at it from that place of lightness. Otherwise, that heaviness is just gonna drag us down."
It really is. I'm just imagining Holly with her beef roast and her homemade ice cream at home, happy, happy as a lamb. You
Happiest,
know?
yep, yep.
I love that. I'm going to switch back to dieting for a second.
Mhm.
I really am curious about the scale too, and how you feel and how you work with people around the scale. There is a difference, I think, for women. They're not really understanding what the scale is really used for. And is there a difference between wanting weight loss for health versus wanting weight loss just to look at the number on the scale?
Yeah, and I think so many women, again, back to the diet cult, I'm just going to say it, and all of the programming, we have placed our value with that number between our two big toes. And that's not okay because our value is anything but our, that number. That number is it's just a number. And I actually recently, and I'm going to do this in two parts. I recently shared with my community me at the same weight but with three different body compositions. So one was back when I was in my 30s. And for context, I'm like 5 foot nothing. So 110 pounds, 5 foot nothing. No big deal. Like people hear 110 pounds, they're like, oh my God, you're so thin. I'm like, no, I'm normal for this height. So 110 pounds. I was a competitive athlete. I was a competitive mountain bike racer, but 95% of my diet was junk food. So yes, I was muscular, but I was also inflamed and not healthy from that metabolic health perspective. Last year, I had been taking a break from the gym. My weight was again, at a healthy 110 pounds, and I was quote unquote thin, but I was a very soft thin. I was a very jiggly thin. So you look at the picture of my, professional photo shoot. It's like, oh, you look great. I'm like, yes, but I'm not strong. I'm not building my body for what it needs to be when I'm in my 70s and 80s. And, and I'm not building that in. So, the first weight was, again, healthy weight and muscular, but eating like trash. The second weight, same weight, I was, eating much better, very clean, nourishing myself, but not building the strength and just getting back into the gym on a consistent basis, seeing muscles that I have not seen in 16 years. And I was like, and I'm up I think like 2 or 3 pounds. I'm like, but I'm more or less the same weight. But I was like, there is a very distinct difference between the three. And I think in our heads, we focus on the number, but I can show you those three pictures and say, it's not the number. It's number one, it's, that value that we have inside, but it's how we're building our metabolic health, how we're building our strength, how we are number one, healing our younger self. And number two, building ourselves for our aging self, right? So it's yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And that's how I view what the scale should be. So it's not the number, but it's what it represents. And so I've got a new program that's coming out in September. Everyone in my emotional eating accelerator has been asking for what's next. And so I decided to do a weight loss program, but I'm like, I don't want to do this in a traditional weight loss sense. So we're doing it in a back to basics, sustainable, healthy weight loss way because I'm not okay with you're going to lose, 10 pounds the first month or making all of these promises, especially when women, especially like 40s, 50s, 60s, there's so many other factors that those promises, can't be kept. And number two, I want to do it in a way where we're building that environment so that so that it can be sustainable. And we're using the exact same emotional eating forensics framework in the weight loss program. So this summer, I've got a group of beta testers. We're going to open it up to the public in September. And this summer, I've got a group of beta testers. And the very first beta tester that came in, she is 80 years old. She's overweight and diabetic. And her words, I will quote her words. She says, if I can do this, anyone can do this. And she's like, and I want you to tell that to everyone. She goes, I want to lead the way. And I want to show all of the younger women what like that this is still possible even at this age. And it was funny because she jumped on a call with me and it was after like I was like I think it was like her second week. And it was like her second or third week and she jumped on a call and she's like I'm walking every day and I'm walking 30 minutes a day, which she has never done. I'm walking 30 minutes a day. I'm going up hills. I'm not getting winded. I don't take naps anymore in the afternoon, which she did every day. She's like, I'm eating more protein. I'm not getting hungry in between meals. My clothes fit better. People are commenting on something looks different about you. By the way, my blood sugar has been completely stable for the last few weeks, not one single spike. That has never happened. And she goes, but I've only lost like a pound or two. What is wrong with me? And I'm like, you are kidding, right? And we got a good laugh out of it. Again, I like to laugh. I was like, what? Like, think about what you just said. You are 80 years old. This has only been a couple weeks and you are experiencing all of this. I was like, the scale is going to move, but this is the stuff that's the most important. And those are also the leading indicators. The scale is going to be the last thing that moves. And especially at our age, we think it's like, oh, it's just going to come off so fast, but no, it is going to take time. And especially if you want to do it right. But when you can focus on number one, that repeatable process and building that environment so that you have the sustainability that you're like, this is something I actually look forward to every day. It's not something that I hate doing. I look forward to eating the food on my plate. I look forward to moving, whatever that means. And those are the wins. And when you can focus on that, the weight is going to come off.
That's so powerful. She had such good results in every other area. And I think that is true. We've been brainwashed to think that we need to be the same weight that we were in high school and that muscle, we know that muscle is going to weigh more and it's also helping us get rid of that fat. Here's the thing that's happening with women that I really would love to hear from you on is the quitting. When we get into a program, and I'm guilty too. Like I have amazing workout programs. I've got coaches that give me stuff. I know that I am so gung ho. Like week one, I'm like, yeah, let's go, let's go, let's go. And then week two shows up and somewhere around Tuesday or Wednesday, I'm like, my gosh, I've got to get into this. So when you talk about the quitting zone, tell us a little bit about that and how you help move women through that.
My goodness. I don't even know where this crazy idea came from, but I decided because I was like, okay, and I've heard statistics like 92% of people quit their diet. And again, what I do, it's not a diet, but for lack of a better word, 92% of people quit when they start this kind of healthy lifestyle change or whatever. So I was like, okay, Holly, you've got all of this pattern stuff. You know how to like brainwash, you help your clients brainwash themselves. Let's think about this quitting thing because so many people quit. So if you can't beat them, join them, right? Like that's my thought. So I was like, okay, how can I help women quit, but do it the right way? Do it in a psychology-based way so that they don't just quit, but they come like not like quit forever, like start on Monday, quit and start again on Monday. Like they're just, what's the word I'm going to say? They are they're coming back and they have a plan, right? So I was like, how can we do this like psychology based? And really what I found is that when you think about why people quit, three reasons. Number one, it's psychology based. It's the thing gets too hard. And then it's, I can't do this. I hate this. This is too hard. I always quit. Nothing ever works for me. Like all of the excuses that goes on in our heads. The second way are again, back to the predictive patterns. Oh, I'm going to start when vacation's over. I'm going to start when the kids, and it's always something with the kids, right? It's a school, it's a break, it's a thing. There's always something with the kids that's the excuse. And it's like, no, the kids have that's every week or when this work project is over. So we have these like predictable things going on. And then the third one is really just life being lifey, like that bad day where you wake up late and you can't find your phone and there's traffic and then you have to stay late at work and all the things. And it's just easier to quit. And our brain would rather keep us in a familiar hell than have us change for an unfamiliar heaven, even if that heaven is better for us. So what I did is, so we're doing some brainwashing there to really help women look at this from a different way and come back from a different way as well so that it's not so much I'm going to quit, but I'm just going to dial it down a little bit and then I'm going to bring it back up.
Wow. You are coming at this from such a whole new perspective. It's sustainable, it's creating the environment and the mindset, not just cutting out the food and over exercising. Where can everyone find you? Because when this is available in September, we want to make sure that everybody can get to you. And you have to, absolutely, listeners, you have to start watching Holly on her social media. It's the best.
Yes, come over. I hang out on Instagram at holly.bertone. It's Bertone. And just say hello in the DMs. Let me know that, you're here from the podcast and we'll connect. And if I've got some free resources, I'll be sure to get them over to you too.
I love that. And you also have a really good podcast. What's the
Yes.
name of your podcast?
Yeah, so the podcast is on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and even Substack, and it is called Weight Loss Forensics.
So good. Holly, today you have not only helped us break free from the diet cult, but you've also shared with us some deeper things about our body and our brain needing to be safe, not having value in the scale alone, and just making sure that we are looking at all the factors. We're not just looking at trying to get that scale weight to go down. I appreciate you being here so much. I don't think this is the last time we're going to have a conversation. I just want you to know this has been such a valuable conversation. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you so much for having me and having me back.
Thank you. And listeners, make sure you nourish your entire life and give yourself grace today.